I've been a dean at this college longer than I want to admit. Long enough to know most young people think everything horrendous in the world happened yesterday. History, particularly our history, is a fog, a dense fog that somehow lifted and left nothing in its absence. Being a woman who is black, a black woman with memories of several decades living in this country, time is my pulse. I check it every day, sometimes every hour, every half hour, every few minutes to see if it is strong, weak, or as my doctor says, absent. In other words, is there no sign of any pulse? Again? The first time I couldn't feel my pulse at all was in 1968 when I was 6. My father, who was a doctor, had taught me how to take my pulse. Elbow up, 2 fingers on your wrist, and wait. You wanted to feel a subtle beat under your fingers, and that was taking your pulse. My father said you wanted it to be strong, not weak, and most importantly, you always wanted to feel something. Now, I was in the hallway drawing. The newscaster had announced that Martin Luther King Jr. was shot just after 6 p.m. My mother started screaming, and my father kept saying, I knew it, I knew they'd kill him. And I remember understanding then that just after 6 p.m. was a time when a man could get shot. Eventually, my mother stopped screaming. She was weeping softly instead. And I decided I'd stay in the hallway because my father kept changing the channel and the newscasters kept repeating the same thing over and over. Martin Luther King Jr. had been shot just after 6 p.m. And I laid in the hallway in a ball and closed my eyes until I heard the newscaster again. Only this time he was saying Martin Luther King Jr. was pronounced dead just a few minutes ago at 7:05 p.m. And I don't know why, to this day I don't know why, but I put my 2 fingers on my wrist just like my father had taught me, and I was very still, and I waited. There was nothing. Nothing at all, not a hint of a pulse. I knew I was still alive. I knew I could get up and go into my father and say, I don't have a pulse. My pulse stopped. And he said, Shush, Paula. This is no time for foolishness. This is a time to be serious. Do you understand? And I said, yes, yes. Martin Luther King Jr. died at 7:05 p.m., I thought. And then a few minutes later, I had no pulse. By the time I was in high school, there was this whole argument between Malcolm versus Martin. Martin died in 68, Malcolm 3 years earlier. I knew almost nothing about Malcolm X. The one thing I remembered more than anything was everything we read said Malcolm was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. On July 17th, 2014, it was a Thursday, and I didn't go to lunch until 2:30 because I knew I had more than enough of a backlog of work here to keep me until maybe 8:30. I had gone to Macy's to buy a blouse that was cool because it felt like it was 150 degrees in my office, even with the air at full blast. When I got back, I remember pressing the button for the elevator and nothing else, until I opened my eyes and realized I was on the lobby floor being propped up by the security guard. At the same time, over his shoulder, I could see the lobby clock, 3:35. Instinctively, I took my pulse. Nothing. Nothing at all. When I got upstairs, just walking through the hallway, I could feel tension everywhere. Before I could get into my office, my secretary said to me, "Bastard cop chokes a black man to death over nothing, and you watch. Won't a damn thing happen." In another office, my colleagues, two other deans of the college, both white men, were watching a TV that sat on one of their bookcases. The newscaster was saying, "After Garner lost consciousness, he lay on the ground for 7 minutes until the ambulance took him to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Death occurred between approximately 3:30 and 3:45. At 3:35, after I'd fainted, I'd tried to take my pulse and felt nothing. Malcolm pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m., King at 7:05 p.m., Eric Garner between approximately 3:30 and 3:45 p.m. Nobody dies at approximately anything." The latest transcript from the Hennepin County Prosecutor's Office, dated June 15, 2020, posts that cop removed his knee from George Floyd's neck at 20:27, which is what they call military time, which translates to 8:27 p.m. in what they call civilian time. George Floyd was taken to Hennepin County Medical Center. Transcript says he was pronounced dead at about 9:27 civilian time, but people who were there said he was dead well before that. Transcript says at about 6, one of the cops is asked if he can find George Floyd's pulse. Cop says no, he can't get a pulse. Malcolm 3:30 p.m., King 7:05 p.m., Garner between 3:30 and 3:45, George Floyd about 9:27 p.m. civilian time, or earlier, much earlier. 2 weeks ago, I saw my doctor. He's good. He's thorough. I've had him for years. He thinks I'm a hypochondriac. He says to me, "Every time you come to see me, it's the same complaint. My pulse stops. There is no pulse. I keep pressing and there is no pulse at all." He says to me, "What's the matter with you? Don't you want to live?" I say, "It isn't about me. It's about my son. I want to know that whatever this thing is that makes my pulse stop suddenly isn't hereditary, that I haven't passed it on to him. Let mine stop every day, every hour if it has to, but not his. I want him always, always to have a pulse, a strong pulse. I want him to feel himself living every second of every day, so that he never has to be laying on the filthy ground or on a metal tray. There will never be a damn report that says approximately behind his name, because there will be no question, no question. He's alive. Alive."